My name's Scoob. I've been riding all my life. Was an amateur rider, struggled my way through to become a pro rider. You know, it was not easy for me. I never went to school, never did anything like that. Never went to any schooling. I just learned all this stuff on my own and just taught myself. I was one of them guys that always watched the pros, and I'm thinking, how do they do that? You know, back when I first started, I started when I was like 8 years old riding, and I thought, how do they do that? How do they flow like that? How do these guys are so fast? You know, I was just a wreck. You know, I'm fighting the bike. I'm not one with the bike. Everything's bad. You know, just no control, no confidence, no flow on the bike, none whatsoever. And I just busted my butt, busted my ass, and just studied them guys and learned and learned and learned. And I finally got there. I finally got the flow. I finally became one with the bike. I finally built my confidence. And man, it was one of the greatest feelings in the world. I'm 42 years old now, and I'm still addicted to it. You know, it's an addicting thing. It gets in your, I call it a soul thing. It gets in your soul, and it never lets go. And that's just what this sport does. You know, you guys probably know because you're all riders yourself. It's crazy how it takes a hold of you. And you can see my bike right back there. And I plan on maybe jumping on that and showing you some of this stuff. Hopefully you guys are hearing me and seeing me, and I can jump on there. And as I explain some of this, I got a little presentation that I'm going to run down through. And what we're going to do, guys, is we're just going to run over what I call the foundation. Okay. It's what I just said. As I learned this stuff and became a pro, I started thinking about it and started to piece it together as like, what's the best way for someone to learn this quick? What's the best way that, you know, that I could help guys to learn this really quick instead of struggling like I did for years, trying to piece it all together, trying to do it. You know, some people are naturals. I wasn't a natural. Some people are naturals and pick this up right away. I mean, they swing a leg over a bike. I've rode with many of these guys. I met guys that they got right on the track, and it was like, what the heck, you know? They just, what they do is they move on the bike correctly, and they're on the correct place on the bike, and they don't even know they're doing it. So most of the guys I ever met didn't even know they were doing it, because you would ask them, because once I learned all this stuff and knew what was going on, they were like, I don't know, I'm just riding the bike, you know. But that's few and far between, and not a lot of people can do that. You know, a lot of times amateurs overthink it, and they get stressed out, they get tensed up, and then they make mistakes on the bike, and they're fighting the bike. And once you start fighting the bike, all these bad things start to happen, because you start to get tired, you start to make mistakes, and it don't build your confidence. You start to so you make more. It's just a revolving you know, snowball effect where it piles on top of each other, and then you never build the confidence. So when you don't build the confidence, it's frustrating to you. Okay, so. And this presentation is for more beginner riders. So if you guys want to type in the side there and you want to let me know where you're at in your riding, if you're more an intermediate, if you're more in a beginner, you know, just starting out, that'd be helpful. That would help to where I gear this more towards. I mean, we're going to have a basic presentation, but, you know, if you're more of a little bit intermediate rider, you kind of know some of this stuff, you know, and that can help. So. Hope you guys are still with me here, but I'm rambling on, and we want to get into this. But the point I'm trying to get to is the foundation. That's the thing I built to help you guys and take it down into make it easy as possible, so you can get this if you're a beginner to pick it up really quick, and then don't take as long as it took me to pick it up and some other riders, you know, so you can get out there on the track and you can start to do the correct things, implement the correct things right away. Because once you start to do that, once you start implementing it, then that snowball effect happens in a positive way. And then you start believing in yourself, and you start building massive confidence, and you get what I like to call your swagger. You know, motocross racers have a swagger. And, you know, when you get that confidence, you're forced to be reckoned with, and you know it. You know you got that confidence. You know you can go out there on that track and do damage. And it's a heck of a good feeling, guys. It's a heck of a good feeling once you get this down, once this becomes second nature to you. What I call engraved in your DNA, becomes a part of a reflex reaction. And that only comes with practice. You have to practice, practice, practice. and you have to practice the correct techniques. Ty said B class plus 25. My son, who's first year on a 65. That's awesome, Ty, man. That's cool, man. The you know, this is a great family sport, guys. This is one of the best family sports in the world. It's one of the close-knit family sports too, and it's a close-knit. Not even if you're not family, you don't have your family there. This is a great sport for you know, we're a small group. Even though motocross has grown and it's got bigger, we're still a small group, and a lot of people know a lot of people, and you know everybody at your local race, you know, and we're woods riding around the woods, and it's just a cool little community. We got Tommy, super mini rider, first year C rider. Awesome, Tommy. You know, this is good, going to be a good presentation for you. This is geared towards you. David, intermediate. My son Matt is a beginner. Awesome. See, we got a lot of people that ride. My boy rides also. His bike's right behind my bike back there, and it's broke down right now, and he's been yelling at me every day to get it fixed. But I'm in Pennsylvania, and it's freezing out, and it's cold, and I hate it. I like going to Florida. I used to go to Florida all the time. I haven't done it that much. I was thinking about going down this year, but I haven't made it down yet. But just get out of here and ride. I like to ride, you know. Okay, guys, let's jump into this and let me show you. Let's get into this training, okay? And what I want to show you. Give me 1 second here, and I'm going to bring up a slideshow here just to help guide us along. Give me 1 second. Okay. Let me know if you guys can see this. Hold on. Looks like it might have messed up here. Let me stop it. Bring it back. Okay, let me bring up this slideshow real quick. It brought it up there, but I think it might have. I don't think it did it right. Hold on. 1 second, guys. Bear with me. Okay. There we go. Okay. Can you guys see this? Can you guys hit me on that chat thing on the side there? And let me know. I keep losing it for some reason. Apologize. Let me see what's going on here. We might have to abandon this. Jason, David, Ty, anybody, can you see this picture that's on the screen right now? Yes, okay. Now, it was letting me do a slideshow with it. Now it ain't doing it. Let me so I can flip through this thing. Yes. You guys are saying you're seeing it. Problem I'm having is I cannot flip through it, which I could do it just a minute ago. Right before we got on live here, I was just practicing, make sure it gets some stuff right here. And now it will not do it. I'm going to bring it back to me here a second. Bear with me 1 second here, guys. I'm going to try this one more time again to bring this slideshow up. Kind of a presentation. You see I'm not too good on these computers. 1 second. Okay. Let me bring that back up. All right. Can you guys see that now? This slideshow, as I move through, it says it shows a picture of me. Boom. Well, I hope you guys can see that. Just a quick question. Can you guys type this in? Are you seeing me right now? Are you seeing the thing that says the Motocross Training Academy free MX coaching session? Just type me if you're just seeing me, or if you're seeing the Motocross Training Academy slideshow that's up there. Can you just type Motocross Training Academy? Nope, nope. All right, it's not showing. Son of a gun. Hold on. I tell you what, we're going to abandon this and get right to it. If this, I'm going to try it one more time, guys. If it don't work, getting out of here. We'll just do it on the fly. It was a nice guide. I had a nice guide to run through with everything written down. And boy, it just doesn't seem to be working. Let me see here. Okay, 1 second, guys. Bear with me. Wow, that thing will not work. Now let's see. Let's try this. There we go. Well, okay. Can you guys see that? How about now? Can you see where it says body position, the starting point? Say yes if you can see the body position. I don't think it's going to let me flip through it. Jason, we saw it a minute ago when you started it. I know, and I don't know what I did. Working, see it now. Okay. All right, listen, here's what we're just going to have to do. It would let me flip through it as a slideshow before, and it's not doing that now. It's bringing up this picture only, what you guys are saying you're seeing, which says body position, the starting point, and but it gives me no way to slide through it, which, you know, I don't know what the heck's going on there, but let's just start. Okay, we're gonna jump right into this. We, you know, I don't want to take up all you guys' time. I know you got stuff to do. Everyone's got busy lives, and let's get right into it. What we're gonna basically go over here, guys, is the two things that matter the most to motocross racing, to riding your dirt bike for that matter. It don't matter. I mean, if you're a woods rider, if you don't even race motocross, if you just go out and you're, you know, practice at a practice track, you just ride with your friends. This is it, okay? And this is what I call the foundation. It all starts with your body position. It's the most important, crucial thing, okay? It's the most important factor. It all starts here. But what happens is if you get this wrong, this body position wrong, you're always going to fight the bike. Always. I mean, because you're going to be in the wrong place, okay? And we're going to get into it here in a second. We got the 5 controls which you use. You know, your clutch, your front brake, your rear brake, your shifter, your throttle. And when you're using these things, when you're braking, when you're accelerating, which is 2 big things, that's a force, okay? That's a force that you're applying yourself with the throttle and with the brake. And they're the 2 big ones. And if you're not moving your body correctly, you for them forces, you know, you're out of the center of balance. And what happens is you fight the bike. And this is where you'll find yourself getting tired all the time, making massive mistakes, crashing a lot more. I mean, all the bad things. It doesn't build confidence. When you start to flow with that bike and you start to move correctly from the center of balance under your forces, braking, accelerating, and the other force we have them 2, and that's 2 you create through your 5 controls. But then there's the forces of the track and we know what's on the track if we ride, or even if you're not, if some of you guys are on here, if you can let me know, if you all race, let me know, type it in. If you don't race, just let me know. Woods rider, just a practice guy, it don't matter. It all applies the same, okay? And what it is, and you got forces from the track. We got whoops, jumps, breaker bumps, ruts, corners, uphills, downhills, doubles, everything. Everything you do is a force that's applied, and you have to have your body in the right position on that bike for everything that's going on that track, for hitting a jump, for entering a rut, for doing a corner, for going up an uphill, for going down a downhill. And then what I just said a minute ago, you're adding in braking and accelerating, another force, okay? And you gotta get that body position right. And when you do, you'll start to flow. And this is where you'll start to keep more momentum. Like, say, for example, coming into a corner, and you got your entrance decks to a corner and your exit decks to a corner. Well, as you're coming into that corner, you're going to start to brake in what we call the entrance decks, okay? As you brake, you're going to want to move your body to apply to adjust for that force going to the front of the bike. And then as you come lighter on braking, as you get to the apex of the corner where you're going to go back to throttle, you want to start to move a different way. And we're going to get into this more. I'm just kind of throwing this at you real quick. You want to, racing is my life, Jason said. I just seen that. But anyhow, if you get to the apex of that corner and you come lighter on your braking, you want to start to move again, more to the center, the starting point, this starting point right here, because there's not a lot of forces on your bike. And then you go to throttle, and there's some things you do there. And then the point I'm getting to is it gets you, you become one with the bike. You start to flow, and you don't fight that bike anymore. And it becomes where you lose momentum, and it becomes where you don't build any confidence, okay? So here's where we want to start, in this body position, the starting point. This is the first thing you guys want to practice. This is the first thing you got to get down right, okay? It all starts right here. And I'm gonna show you another slide if I can bring it up. If I can't, we'll just go over it anyhow. But it's going to be called body position movements. And the movements I just kind of went over there. But the first thing you want to do is the starting point is you want to, number one, center your head, okay? And what that means is when you're in the central location, sitting or standing. And let me say something else here real quick. There's two center of balance positions. We have standing center of balance and we have seated center of balance, okay? So this is for either one. You want to center your head directly over the handlebar mounts. It should be direct. Your head should be directly over the handlebar mounts, okay? That's it. When you jump on your bike, let me get rid of this once real quick. Maybe a good idea. Let's just do something on the fly here real quick. Okay, now you guys can you see me again? You know what I'm going to do? I think I'm just going to jump on my bike. And hopefully if you guys can see my bike back here, and I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you what you do. So I think that's the best way. This slideshow don't seem to be working. So let's let me jump back here. Can you guys still see me? Can you see me back here? Can you hear me all good? See the bike? Just type in yes real quick. Yes, 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 yes. So I know. Just want to make sure. So hopefully you guys can still see me, okay? Hope you guys can see me on my bike. That light's a little bright, but it's all good, okay? The first thing you want to do when you jump on this bike, the body was just the starting point, what we're talking about. And this is where there's no forces on this bike, okay? There's nothing on this bike. Even though say you're riding out to your track or you're riding out to your practice track, this is where you're always going to go back to we talked earlier about throttling instead about braking. There's stuff on the track. This is where when there's no forces on your bike, this is where you're going to go to. And how you start that is you center your head right here over the handlebar mounts. See how my head's over these handlebar mounts right here? Boom, right there. That's how you find it. What a lot of guys do is they make the mistake. Amateurs will make the mistake of getting on this bike and being somewhere completely wrong, like maybe like this. A lot of times they'll sit. One of the biggest things amateurs do is they sit. And they sit, even when they sit wrong. They're way back here, or, you know, whatever the case may be. This is a big one. You want to be standing all the time, okay? You want to be in the standing attack position. This allows you, and you're going to learn here in a minute as we go forward here, to make quick movements, because you got to make movements from this starting point center of balance. You got to move. You got to row to the back of the bike. You got to go up over the front of the bike. You got to make lateral movements side to side. It's hard to do on the bike stand, okay? But that's some of your movements, all right? So when you jump on this bike and you go to ride out onto the track, you want to center your head over the handlebar mounts. That's going to start you. That's going to be your first step in what you want to do. The second thing you want to do is you want to get your knees tight against this bike. These knees right here, you want to get them tight against this bike, okay? This gives you control of your bike. This gives you don't want to lose separated feeling, okay? You want to control this bike as much as possible. With them knees tight against that bike, you can actually apply pressure as you get better and become a better rider. You know, maybe if you're just a beginner right now, you don't want to, you know, try this right away till you get a good feel of it. But you'll actually use your knees to move that bike around and stuff. Say, for example, we're going into a rut to adjust a little bit. You'll also use your upper body lateral movements through your shoulders, but them knees are tight. You don't want it loose, but this bike can bounce all around. You don't have as much control that way. So hold on one second. Let me check. Are you guys? Okay, you're all saying yes. Cool. Because you can see me on this bike. All good. Just making sure. All right. We're just going to keep going with it this way, guys. Hopefully this is working. You can see this good. So we jump on our bike. We got no forces. We center our head over the handlebar mounts. We get our knees tight against the bike, okay? The next thing we do is and this is a great thing you want to always remember and do, or you'll have a tendency not to do this. Just instantly put a finger on the brake and a finger on the clutch. That's a good habit. Just get into that habit. As soon as you go in here, put a finger on the clutch and a finger on the brake. You want them there all the time to, you know, to use your controls. And we'll get into that in a second, but just do that. So we center our head, our knees are tight. We want to go, you can't see my feet. I don't think you can see my feet, but you go to the balls of your feet, okay? The balls are the front part of your foot. The middle part's the arch, and the heel's the back part, okay? A lot of amateurs make this mistake. They ride on either their arches or their heels. Not a lot of time the heels, but a lot of time the arches. And that's not correct. What that does is, if when you jump on your bike and you can feel, if you go to your arches, you have your boots, your big boots on it, and your foot, if you get a chance, jump on your bike and check this out, has a good chance of hitting your brake or your shifter while you're riding, okay? And so you want to have them feet back on the balls of your feet. The other purpose of that is, on the balls of the feet, you're able to, you have more leverage through your ankles to adjust. Remember I was saying earlier with your knees tight, kind of moving this bike around. See how I'm doing that on here? Well, I'm doing that through the balls of my feet also. And that gives you the leverage to do that, which also gives you control. We're looking for ultimate control here, flow, right? So that's it. Balls of the feet, knees tight, head over the handlebar mounts. The other thing we want to do is keep our elbows nice and high. This gives us the leverage once we start to ride to move this bike. When we're making lateral movements, that gives us the leverage to make them movements. If we keep our arms down in here like this, like what's his name? He does that, forget his name, that good rider, but he's really good. Ronnie Mack, he does that all the time. But I mean, once you get good at this sport, and once you become really good, you can mess around like that and still ride a bike because you get the basics down. But if your elbows are in here like this, you have no room to I can't adjust that bike hardly at all. With my elbows up like this, I got the leverage from my arm to my body to really lay this bike over. And where that's going to come into play, guys, is corners. That's really going to come into play in corners. And you're not going to be standing for that. You're going to be seated. But what it's going to do is that's really going to allow you to lay that bike over just like that. See how my arm went from way up there down to there? To really lean it over. And we'll get into it later, but what that does is you have to lay a bike over for a corner, especially a rutted corner. You have to lean a bike over a lot farther than you realize. A lot of amateurs make the mistake of going into a corner, especially a rutted corner, and they don't lay the bike over far enough. And what happens is they catch that rut with either the fork tube or their tire, and it throws them off balance. And that's where you don't build no confidence. You feel, well, I can't do ruts. I can't do ruts, because you're all off balance and not building confidence. So you want to keep them arms nice and high, okay? And what you want to do is, and that also helps for balance. For balance, as you're going down through a rough, rutted track, whatever the case, whoops, whatever the case may be, you're coming down through there. That's like a tightrope walker that holds a long beam, like, you know, a long pole that walks on a, you know, a little skinny rope. That's part of balance, keeping these elbows nice and high, all right? We want to keep our shoulders square, facing to where we're going. So our shoulders, our heads over the handlebar mounts, our knees are tight. We're on the balls of our feet. We want to keep our shoulders nice and square, facing to where we're going. We do not want to dip these shoulders down like this, go like this. No, we want them facing to where we're going. And we get into lateral movements in a minute. I'll show you how you laterally move, you know, back and forth like this. But in the starting point, we want the shoulders nice and square facing where we're going. They're dipping in the shoulders. Okay, so knees are tight, head over the handlebar mounts. This is how you find it. Finger on the clutch, finger on the brakes. We got our shoulders nice and square. We got you know, we're on the balls of our feet, elbows nice and high. And the last part of this is we want to carry the weight down through our legs into the foot pegs. Okay, no weight from my waist up through my arms, up, you know, into my shoulders and up into my head. Oh, that's a big head, so there's a lot of weight up there. All right, but we want to keep that weight down into the foot pegs. That lowers the center of gravity, guys. That puts the center of gravity down, lower down into the foot pegs, which we want, because we want this bike to stick into the ground, except when we're jumping. But other than that, we want it to get good traction. That's where we get good control. That's where we're throttling, the back tire hooks up. You know, the front tire is digging in good and it's getting us good traction. So we want to lower that center of gravity as much as possible, but we're carrying the weight down into the foot pegs. We want our upper body nice and loose because that's where we're going to flow and make these movements. And if we carry too much weight up into these handlebars, it throws this bike off balance. There's a pivot point. This bike is like a teeter-totter, right? It's like a teeter-totter. And when you're in the starting point center of balance, and you put too much weight on the front of the bike, it puts that pivot point to the front, okay? Or if you're way back here starting to ride, it puts that pivot point. As you can see, the bike will move. See how it moves? It'll put it back there, okay? So we want to keep that upper body nice and loose. Plus, that'll give you arm pump too when you're holding real tight on here, okay? So that's it, guys. That's the starting point center of balance. That's right where you want to start from. And the next thing you do from there is you go into movements from there, okay? Let me jump on here to see. I'm not seeing what's going on. You guys are typing in anything in there. Any questions on that starting point? You guys got anything on that? And what you do there? Just looking through some of the comments. Let's see here. Give me 1 second. Okay. Are you guys seeing that now? The slideshow as I'm flipping through it? I think it's actually working now. So we looked here is we're looking at body position and starting point, center of the head, the knee position, which you know is tight. We want our knee joints actually over our ankle joints also, okay? That's a good way to know when you find the center, the starting point center of balance, where you start on the bike, your knee joint, you want it over your ankle joint. We have shoulders square here. That's what I talked about. You want them square, carrying no weight down through that body, okay? Elbows up, we talked about that. Back position, we talked about your foot position on the balls of your feet, but the back position, what your back position is, and I can basically your back position, you don't want to crouch down real hunch over. You want to keep a nice straight back. That way when you move, you get that you can move and you can move correctly. You're not all hunched over and throwing yourself all out of whack and off balance, okay? Let's see here. Go with the flow. That's the one I threw in there. And let's can you guys see this slideshow now? Hopefully you can see that now. Give me 1 second here. Okay, let's get it back off here, bring it back. Okay, hopefully you guys can see me now. Bear with me on this. Like I said, if anybody's joined in, this is just recently, this is my first time doing a Google Hangout, so hopefully you guys are able to see this, and hopefully I'm not messing it up too bad here. So let's check something else out here real quick, okay? As far as we have standing, okay? Now, what we're going to do in that standing is that's where we're going to ride this bike almost all the time. That's where you want to be, because when you're in that standing, what it does is you're able to take the abuse from the track. You're able to, you got, you know, breaker bumps, ruts, the whole 9 yards. You're going down through a track, or if you're just riding in the woods, when you're in this position right here, your body, hold on 1 second, guys. This bike's sliding a little bit on the stand. When you're in this position here, your body is acting suspension along with your front forks and your rear shock. Your body's acting suspension up through them legs, up through that back, through your waist, through your shoulders. And that gives you better control. It's acting suspension. This bike is taking a beating. It's boom, boom, boom. You're taking all kinds of stuff, right? When you're in the seated position like this, all that comes up through the seat, and all you can take it is through your back and through your shoulders a little bit. And you can't get as much control that way. When you're standing, you can take a lot more of that abuse, okay? Control the bike better. And the second part of that standing is you can move. We're going to get into that next. You can move a lot quicker to make adjustments, even in a bad situation, you know, like you're going to end off and jump, okay? You can make a movement back to get weight more to the back real quick. See how quick I can do that? While you're in the seated, the only movement you can make is to go your body like more straight up and down, or you could slide like this, but look how stupid that looks. That's not correct. That's not what you want to do, okay? So, but anyhow, moving on, we have that standing center of balance we just went over. And we also have the seated center of balance. And it's the same thing basically for the seated center of balance. And what I call a starting point, okay? And you still want to get your head over the handlebar mounts just like that. Elbows are still high. We're still going to carry the weight down through our legs, okay? We're still going to have a finger on the clutch, a finger on the brake. We're still going to keep our knees tight against this bike. We're not going to, you don't want these knees out loose, the knees and the whole leg. You want it tight against the bike. That's where you're going to get control, okay? But in the seated center of balance, in the seated position, we're going to do this in corners, okay? The standing is going to be almost everywhere on the track until we go into a corner, okay? And the reason we go into the seated in a corner is number one, if we did a corner standing up like this, it's you guys know that's rode a good bit. First of all, it's almost impossible to do. And I mean, you can do it sometimes on long sweepers, but if you go through a corner standing, another thing, you're top heavy, you know what I mean? Another thing is you can't lean the bike over real well. When you get down like this, you really lower the center of gravity on the bike, and now you're able to really lean that bike over. And plus, you got to get your legs out when you go through the corners, because you have to lean that bike over. I said it earlier. Remember, you have to lean it over farther than you realize. So to do that, you got to get these legs out, or it's going to catch on that rut in that corner, and it's going to rip that leg off. And it's going to tear your knee. So, you know, you're going through the right-hand corner. Just, you know, obviously that leg's going to come out, and that leg's going to come out. But so when you go into the seated, you want to remember some of the same things you did in standing, and that's you head over the handlebar mounts, knees are nice and tight. The weight, even though it's not a lot of weight, you carry down through your butt, into your legs, into the foot pegs. Elbows are still nice and high. Carry no weight through the upper body, through the shoulders, and the shoulders are square, facing to where you want to go. And you make lateral movements here to adjust for imbalance. When stuff happens and it throws you off balance, you make lateral movements like this with your shoulders still square to correct for that whatever messes you up to get your balance back, okay? So there's the two things. We got the standing and the seated center of balance, okay? Now, let me jump back over here. And is that helping, guys? That you can see that on the bike. Hopefully that's helping. I had no plan to do that on the bike at all. But it kind of worked out. I'm kind of glad I put that bike back there. So you guys still with me here? Just looking at some of the comments. Let's give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to bring up this. Cancel. I probably should just get away from this slide, but hopefully it's kind of helping. I'd like you guys to see it also, you know. 1 second. Okay, let me get back here. All right, hopefully you guys can see that again. Well, it messed up again. So I'm just gonna quit messing with that thing because it's really starting to drive me nuts. Okay, I had some pictures on here. Why I really kind of wanted it to work is I had some good pictures of like Chad Reed and Eli Tomac and Ryan Dungey. So you guys could actually look at the pictures. So you guys could look at them pictures while I was explaining it, but it's just cannot get it to work. Okay, so let's just move on. The next thing, I can see it here. I don't think you guys can. Let me get out of here. I mean, I know you can see this body position thing right now, but I can't move it at all for you guys to see the rest of it. So I'm going to get it back to you can see me. I can go over here and look at it so I can read off of it. And the next thing we got is center of balance movements, okay? This is the next thing, guys. We have that starting center of balance, okay? That's where we're going to start. And what I said earlier, you're going to make movements now. One of the biggest things you're going to do from the center of balance is move to find the center of balance. Now you pull out on the track. You go to the track. You're starting to ride, okay? You got your two biggest forces, which we're going to cover. We're not going to cover everything today, but we're going to cover the braking and accelerating, and you got the forces from the track that are just throwing all kinds of things at you, right? Ruts, brake, I said them all earlier. They're throwing that stuff at you, and it's creating an imbalance on that bike. It's creating, all kinds of, it's throwing you all out of whack. And so you have to move from that starting point center of balance to find the correct center of balance for all them forces that are trying to throw you off balance. Boy, that was all there. So I'll jump on here some of the movements. You guys, is this working out good? Do you like me jumping on the bike and showing you? Is that all right? If you can just throw some yays in there, nays. Honestly, if you guys, I was going to hold questions off to the end also. If you guys want to throw some questions in there, I mean, as I'm going through this, if you have questions on what I'm showing you, shoot them in there, and I'll just keep looking at this and I can answer them as you're going. Like, that starting point center of balance. If you have any questions on that, throw it in there. Throw it in this little chat on the side here. However you guys are doing that. This is kind of confusing, honestly, because I can't. I want to see what you guys are doing. I really can't see. So for me to explain it to you, I don't know. However you guys, Jason, Tommy, Michael, David, however you guys are typing that in the side, if you want to type me questions with what I'm going over. Okay, we're going to move on to the movements now. Movements from the center of balance for these forces of braking, accelerating from the track. And this is very important, guys. This is where you'll start to get the flow. This is where you'll become one with the bike. Okay, and I'll start it off by I'll show you what a lot of amateurs do, what mistakes the amateurs make, and why they fight the bike constantly. Why you're always getting tired. Why you're wrecking a lot. It's because you get this wrong. That starting point and then these movements. Okay, yes on the bike is good. Like the bike stuff. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it. Thanks, David. Awesome. All right, so let's go to movements, okay? Jump back over here. So the first thing I want to show you guys is your first main movement, okay? We're in the starting point center of balance, okay? This is the movement that you're going to see and you're going to do more than anything. This movement right here. And what that movement is rowing to the back of the bike, okay? This movement right here looks just like this. I'll show it to you real quick. Right here like this, row to the back of the bike, okay? Boom, back to the center of balance. Row to the back of the bike, boom, back to the center of balance. That's the movement you're going to see the most, okay? We got that movement. This is all in the standing. Now I'm in the standing center of balance. You always got to remember there's two different things for this. There's always the standing center of balance and there's the seated center of balance. The standing, this is where you guys want to learn to ride. If you're an amateur, this is where you want to be. The standing, when we just all went over the center, the starting point, you want to be in this standing center of balance and then start to make these movements. But you want to be on this bike in this position 90% of the time. The only time you want to come out of this position is when you go into corners. You're going to go into the seated center of balance, okay? Just remember that. I always like to harp on that because a lot of amateurs make the mistake of not doing this, okay? They either start just sitting all the time. They never stand, or if they stand, they're not in what I just taught you. They're all over the place. Back here, too far forward like this, too straight. A lot of amateurs make this mistake. They're too just straight up and down like this, okay? So, but that's your main movement you're going to see the most is when you go back like that, okay? And this is all standing. The other movement you're going to make is you're going to go lean forward up over the bike, okay? Like this, boom, up over the front of the bike, just like that, okay? The other movement from the standing is going to be your lateral movements, and that's going to be, and I can't really do it on this bike stand, but it looks like this. All it is keeping your shoulders square and using that leverage between your body and your arms to move the bike. Boom, lay it this way, lay it this way. And you're gonna use that a lot when you get off, even out of a hole shot. Say for example, you're coming up through a hole shot, you got a guy close to you, you get a little bit off balance, or he comes into you, you're gonna make that lateral movement over to the left if he's on the right, or if it happens to be on the left, you're gonna make that lateral movement to the right to keep your balance, okay? So how do you make this first movement? The most important one that I said, this is the most important movement to the back like this, okay? And where you'll see this movement is, I'm going to explain how to do it correctly, but where you'll see this is you're going to see this you're going to see it on jumps, you're going to see it on whoops, you're going to see it on braking. So that's a force. Remember, there's forces, your forces you give, braking and accelerating and braking. There's forces from the track. The track is going to be whoops, downhills, jumps. That's where you're going to see it the most, okay? You're going to see this movement because, you're going down a downhill, the weight's coming to the front of the bike, you're going to slide more back to here, okay? If you're under hard braking, coming into a corner, you're going to make this movement, boom, back like this, okay? What that's doing, guys, is say you're under braking. Say you're coming down the downhill, the first example. The weight's coming to the front of the bike. The weight's coming to the front of the bike because you're already on a downhill, okay? Especially when you get to the bottom of the downhill, and if there's a corner and you got to brake, now you add double the force that goes to the front, right? Coming down a downhill, plus you're braking coming down that downhill. Now all that momentum and all that force is coming to the front of the bike. If you stay right here, okay, right in the starting point, freeze right here and stay right here, that's going to be too much weight on the front. That's where you're going to get an endo, or you're going to get the front wheel to tuck out, okay? So you need to make this movement to find the center of balance because that evens it out. Just like a teeter-totter. Teeter-totter in school, when two guys stood on it, if you stood on that teeter-totter and somebody come up underneath and try to push you off, what would you do? You go into that force, right? If somebody came the other way and tried to push you off, you'd go back into that force. You would move back so you didn't flip frontwards. It's the same concept, okay? And if you think about these things, you got to think how that's affecting the bike. What's happening when you're out on the track and how it's affecting the bike. If it's a force that's going to the front of the bike, you're going to want to make this movement, okay? And you're going to see that force more often than not because you got downhills, you got the force of braking, you got whoops, okay? We come through a set of whoops. Here's another example. We come through a set of whoops. We get into that set of whoops. We want that front to be a little bit light, okay? And we want to get back a little bit on the back of the bike to keep that front light. So we make this movement to go back right here. You see my front one up, okay? But how you make that movement is from the starting point, center of balance, head over the handlebar mounts, everything we went over, our knees are tight. All we do is we keep our knees tight. We pivot from our ankles that are on the balls of our feet, right, guys? We pivot from there and we slide with our knees along the bike, and we start to squat down just like this and keep our back still nice and straight, okay? We don't crouch way down like this or nothing like that. We keep our back straight and we slide back. I mean, there's times where you're going to go way back. Do you ever see Travis Pastrana going through loops? Boom, he's way back here. There's times we're only going to go to here. There's times we're going to go to here. That's all dependent on how much force is going to the front of the bike. Motocross is so much about feeling. And you're going to start, once you start to make these movements, what's going to happen is you're going to start to feel it. You're going to go, it's going to click in the head. You're going to go, I see what's going on. And you'll start to say, I went back too far. I didn't need to go back that far to find the center of balance. Okay, I can go back just a little bit in the next lap on whatever that obstacle may be. So we pivot, we slide on our ankle, we pivot on our ankles, we slide on our knees, and it's almost like we're going to go sit down on sit down on a seat, but we just don't actually sit down. We just do the same movement. We bend in the knees a little bit, pivot on the ankles, squat down, boom, just like that in the hips. And our knees still stay tight. Boom, we row back to the center of balance. Tight, row back. Knees on the pivot. Pivot on the ankle, the feet, the ankles of our feet. I'm sorry. Slide our knees along the bike. They're still nice and tight. We squat down in the hips and the knees a little bit. Right there it is. Back to the center of balance. Boom, just like that. Boom, okay? Now, the other movement from standing center of balance is that one where we go up over the front of the bike, okay? What that's going to do is you're not going to see that movement a ton, okay? Where you're going to see that movement is if you're standing down a long straight stretch and you're throttling, okay? See what's going to, so you're going to want to go forward into that force of acceleration. Because what's going to happen, remember, this is all a balance game. When we're throttling, that's putting a lot of power to the back of the bike, all right? So if we was to stay back here while we're throttling, that's going to put all that weight, our weight, and that power to the back wheel, and that's going to throw us off balance, okay? So we want to lean forward like this into the force of acceleration. Now, what that is, guys, you might have the question, you might say, well, I've seen Ryan Villapoto be throttling hard and be down like this, okay? A lot of people have asked that question, and I'll explain that to you right now. What that is when you initially come out of a corner and you start to power, okay, and you initially hit that throttle, boom, that power acceleration to the back wheel, when you do that, that's where you'll have the mistake happen, okay? Because you hit the power and all that power goes to the back wheel, and then you're back here, and that'll get you that wheelie and get you out of control where you almost loop out or wreck, okay? So that's where you want to lean forward into that force of acceleration when you're initially going to really power hard, okay? As you start to power down a straightaway, and it's a long, say it's a really, really long straightaway, the bike starts to even out now. That center of balance starts to even out. All that force ain't going to the back. Even though you're still throttling hard, the bike and the suspension ain't working as hard, and it starts to balance itself out. What you can do then is you can come back down into this while you're powering. This is only usually, watch outdoor races, you will not see them guys do this movement, not out of a corner. They won't leave a corner like this, powering hard. If you watch, pay close attention the next time you're watching these guys ride outdoors. They usually they're seated and they'll come forward like this, boom, and then power out. Okay, but we're talking about standing, so we'll just say you come forward like this, you power out, and as the straight stretch keeps going and you're powering hard, well, that initial force, you wanted to lean forward into that force, right? As you keep going, the bike starts to even itself out a little bit, and then you can kind of squat down into that, really powering hard. This is where you're flying. And what that does now is all that stuff that's coming up, breaker bumps, little stuff that's in that long straightaway, and you're powering hard. Now you just brought the front a little bit lighter so it'll kind of skim over that stuff, okay? And that's more of an advanced technique, and I'm just kind of showing it to you because a lot of guys ask that question. You know, what do you mean? Like, I've seen Ryan Villapoto being like this, powering hard. And hope that explains it. Hope that explains it for you guys. You understand that. That's when it happens. But your initial hit of power, that initial force, remember this force of acceleration, this force of braking, that initial force of acceleration, you want to be up over the front of the bike like this, okay? Because what happens is if you hit that initial force and you're back here, boom, it pulls on you like this, and that's where you get arm pump, and it throws you, and that initial force with all that power to the back of the wheel pull your bike up too in the front, and it gets you out of control. So you want to control that, boom, and then power hard, and then you can kind of make some other movements a little bit to maybe get the front light to skim over some stuff. If that makes sense. All right. So that's the other movement we got, guys, over the front of the bike. Okay. And then we got the movement. So that's from the waist up. Okay. We still keep it light. We just come up over the front of the bike. You can actually look down at your front number plate. So the head was over the handlebar mounts right here in the center of balance. Boom, right over the handlebar mounts. This is from the waist up. We're just going to lean forward up over the front of the bike. You can actually look down and see your front number plate right here. That's the other movement. Okay. This one. Boom. Back to the center of balance. Boom. This one. Back to the center of balance. Boom. This one. Back to the center of balance. Boom. This one. That's all you got to do. I mean, just get on your bike and practice it. This is one of the best things you can do is put this bike on a bike stand and go through this stuff. This is how it becomes a reflex reaction, okay? I mean, this is it. Just run through it. Practice it. Boom. Center of balance. Back. Boom. And this is what's going to happen. This is while forces are going on. Boom, boom. This is movements you're making all the time. All right. So the other one we got is the seated center of balance. So we're in the seated center of balance. Now, what initially is going to happen is where you're going to see what you're going to see most out of the seated center of balance. The biggest movement you're going to see is two. You're going to see this one, that forward, like this. That's the biggest one you're going to see in the seated, because when you're in the seated, what's happening? I've said it earlier, I said it a bunch. We're in corners, right? So what's going to happen is while we're in that corner, we're going to be powering out of that corner. And you're going to see this movement, you're going to see the most right here. Boom. Powering out of that corner. And that's just what I explained earlier. So you come into a corner, you're light on the throttle. As you hit the apex and the part where you're going to accelerate out, you're going to apply a lot of throttle to power out of there. And you got to adjust for that by being forward like this. If you're back here and you power, not going to be good. It's going to screw you up. Or even if you're not whole way back here, you're right here, but you have your body more straight up and down, pulling the arms, arm pump, fighting the bike, no confidence, no control. So we're going to be high on the seat. And as we exit out of that corner, we're going to lean forward into that force of acceleration. Boom, power the throttle. And what's going to happen next? Next is going to be whatever obstacle's next. We're going to come right back up into that standing center of balance. So here's the movement, just movement. All that is, guys, is from the waist up. Shoulders still square. We still got it nice and loose, carrying the weight down through the foot pegs. We're just going to go from the waist up over the front of the bike. Boom, to adjust for that throttle coming out of the corner. Now, the other big movement you're going to make in the seated is you're going to make a leg movement because your legs are going to come out. I won't get deep into that, but you guys know that when we go into the right-hand corner, our right leg's going to come out. Our left leg's going to come out. We still keep it tight against the bike, okay? But the other movement we're going to make is this lateral movement. And it's like, side-to-side movement, because what we're going to do in every corner is we're going to have to lean the bike over. I don't care if it's rutted, if it's banked, whatever kind of corner it is, you are going to have to lean that bike over to a degree, okay? So when you lean that bike over, you have to make that lateral movement through the shoulders, that you have to make that movement through the arms, move back and forth like this. So that's the other movement you're going to do in the corners. And to make that movement and to make it more, you feel more comfortable. A lot of amateurs have trouble with this one, okay? To really lean this bike over. Here's how you do it. To lean this bike over, to make that movement in the seated, you're coming into a corner, and you're going to have to lean the bike over, especially for a rut. What you want to do is, say you're going into a left-hand corner. We're going into a left-hand corner. You want to switch the weight down into the right hand, down into the foot peg, okay? You want to put more weight down through your right side into that foot peg because you're leaning the bike to the left, right? Left-hand corner. And you want to make a little, and put the outside, the right hand shoulder a little bit to the outside too, like this, okay? It doesn't look exactly right here. I'm sitting more straight up and down. It'll be more like this. And put the outside shoulder out. What that does is create a counterbalance. That's the counterbalance for you leaning that bike over so far. And that's what gives you the confidence to lean that bike over like that, is that counterbalance through this outside foot. Whatever turn you're going into the left, you know, it's the outside foot. It'd be the right. You're going into a right-hand corner, it's going to be the left foot. That's where you're going to put the weight down through and use the upper body to the outside a little bit also. That's not a big thing. You don't want to move too far over. It's just your upper body and your weight. You can put it a little to the outside also, and that'll create that counterbalance to give you the confidence to really lay that bike over. A big mistake that a lot of people make is, and even some people teach, is that the leg's the counterbalance, and it's not. The leg is not the counterbalance. Okay, you're going into a left-hand corner and you stick your left leg. You can see me on this side. If you're going into a right-hand corner and you stick your right leg out, that's not your counterbalance. How's your right leg going in your right corner? The counterbalance, that has nothing to do with it. Okay, so that's not. If you're going into this right-hand corner like this, weight goes down through this outside leg. That allows you to really lean that bike over. And that's how you get confidence, guys, to really start to do these corners with confidence and control. The biggest thing the amateurs do is they don't lean the bike over far enough. They come into a corner and they keep it all. They're tense and they're tight, and they get into that and they hit the wall, that rut, or they're real choppy on the throttle, and it just screws them up. Okay, you got to really lean that bike over. So let's take a look at this real quick. Let's take a look at the corner example. Let's just break down a corner example in these movements, okay? The center of balance standing movements, okay? And let's take a look at it through our braking and our accelerating, okay? And let's just run through these body position movements, okay? So let's say we're coming down a straightaway. Here it comes in. We're going to come in. We'll say a right-hand corner because you guys can see this leg. We'll just say a right-hand corner. So we're going to be in the standing attack position, right? Coming in this corner, whatever it may be, coming down through there. It might be a little bit, it might be a sandy track, might be a little bit rough coming down into that corner. So we're in the standing center of balance, taking that abuse up through our body to control the bike. Knees are tight. We're on the balls of our feet. Our elbows are nice and high. We're no weight down through the handlebars. We're in the center of balance. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start to brake for that corner, okay? And the force of braking is going to create a force on the bike and an imbalance, and we got to adjust for that. So what happens when we start to brake? We're going to use our back brake and we're going to use our front brake. Okay, our front brake's our main stopping power, and our back brake's more for control. Our back brake's going to keep the back of the bike down. It's going to track us into that corner, line us up for that corner. It's going to keep us tracking straight in there. So we want to keep the back brake. We want to keep what they call a drag on it. It's an advanced technique. I'm not going to get into it right now, but you're using your front more to slow you down, and you're using your back, and you're putting a light drag on it. You don't basically what you don't want to do is lock that rear wheel up. As soon as you lock it up, you lose control. If you've got a light drag on it, you're keeping your momentum and your control. So we've got a light drag. So what are we going to do? As we're braking, that momentum's going to the front of the bike. So we're going to be braking hard right now. Say we were coming down this straightaway, and we're really hauling them out, getting ready to come into this right-hand corner. We're going to go under hard braking. We're going to do our hard braking while the wheels have the most contact with the ground before we start to lean that bike over, okay? The bike's going to be more straight up and down. And as we start to enter that corner, we're going to lean it over. So we're going to stay on this hard braking to slow us down, but we're going to make this movement, boom, back, just like this, okay? Because that braking force is going to the front of the bike, and we don't want to be up here when we're braking like that. That's going to put too much weight on the front, cause us to endo, cause us to wreck. Even if you don't wreck, it's going to cause you to fight the bike. You might not wreck, but you're going to be fighting it. You're going to have too much weight in the front. And it's going to screw you all up. So you make that movement. We've been learning right here. Okay. So we're braking, boom, braking. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start to release the brakes to set ourselves up for this corner. We slowed ourselves down enough. You don't want to over brake, but we want to use enough braking just to set us up for that corner. So we're going to start to release the brakes. As we start to release the brakes, we start to come more back to center of balance, and it's a gradual movement. And it all depends how far you go back, how far you're braking. If it's on a downhill, well, we're just saying a straightaway. So basically, we just come back a little bit. Boom, we're braking. As we start to get lighter on the brakes, we start to move back more to the center of balance because the bike's evening out now. Okay. There's not so much force on the front. We're coming lighter on the braking, so we can come back more to that starting point center of balance. Now, we want to brake right up to our as we start to go into the corner, even starting into the corners, we start to lean the bike over. But what's going to happen is, as we start to lean the bike over to the right, our wheels are losing all the contact to the ground. We had all that good contact. We were coming down the straightaway. That's when we did our most effective braking. We went back in that movement. But as we start to go in, we go into a lighter braking. We start to lean the bike over a little bit. We got to come lighter on the braking, or we're going to lose it. If we're over braking, we're going to wreck, okay? And now we move back more to the center of balance. And our next thing is what? We're going to go to seated, right? We're going to go right down into our seated center of balance. Now we're, boom, off the brakes. We're almost to the apex of the turn where we're going to throttle out. We got high on the tank. Our knees are tight. Our heads over the handlebar mounts. We're flowing, using momentum to go through that corner. Everything we learned in the seated starting point center of balance. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have to what now? Throttle to come out of that corner, right? And if you do that all correctly, you keep momentum, and you can build on top of momentum and throttle out a lot easier. If you come in there over braking, dropping the throttle, well, it's going to be a lot harder to power out of there, because you're going to have to, you might have over braking, screwed y'all up, so you want to brake effectively and then get into that corner on top of momentum. Now we can just start to flow. We can start to roll the throttle on. And what we're going to do is we start to exit that corner. As we roll that throttle on, that force now is going to the back wheel, and start to apply that throttle good. We want to lean that other movement, lean forward. Let me back up. I'm sorry. As we get into that corner, we're going to use that movement, that lateral movement, to lay the bike over. So we're in the right-hand corner. I missed this movement. I'm sorry. We go into that corner. We're going to have to lay that bike over. No matter if it's a deep rut, we're going to really lay it over. Even if there's not a rut, we're still going to lay the bike over no matter what, to a degree, okay? So we put the weight to the outside peg. We use that lateral movement, that distance between our arm and our body, to lay the bike over. We get the counterbalance and the control and the confidence to do that by putting the weight in the outside peg. We lay that bike over. Our leg comes out the other movement, so it don't get caught and get ripped off by the ground. Okay, and now we start to throttle. And as soon as we start to throttle, now our foot comes back to the foot peg. We want to lean forward into the force of acceleration, because we got that power going to the back wheel. And if we was back here, we're going to fight the bike. It's going to screw us up, and it's not going to be fun. You're not going to have a good day of riding. So we're high in the seat. The front digs in. The leg come out. We did the lateral movement. Laying the bike over to the right. We put the weight through the outside foot peg. And as we start to throttle, we lean forward into that force of acceleration. Boom, power out of there. That keeps the center of balance, because all that power is to the back wheel. Power out. Now, what are we going to do next? Well, it all depends on what the track is, but almost guaranteed, more than likely, you're going to go boom, right back up into the standing, right to the center of balance. And so whatever happens next is all dependent on whatever you're doing. If you come back up into that right in now, left-hand corner, right-hand corner, well, you're going to have to brake this movement. Boom, back to center of balance, left-hand corner, down, left leg out, power out over the front of the bike, and the lateral movement to the left. Weight this outside peg. See what I mean? So we come out of that corner, we come back up in the standing center of balance, our starting point, and that leaves us the room to make the movements wherever we need to do. Okay, whatever movements we need to make next. But that's the movements you do, guys, and that's what gives you the confidence and the flow. That right there, doing that stuff right there. Just for me to touch on it real quick. Here, I just want to show you what most amateurs do. Okay, what a lot of amateurs do is, to see the mistakes they make, is number one. I've said it already 100 times, that usually are not standing. But even if they are standing, they're usually way too straight up and down, or they crouch down like this real far, and they almost to the seat. The arms are in tight, and that causes you to not build confidence. That causes you to fight the bike. The biggest thing it does is you fight the bike, and you don't start to flow with the bike. Hopefully you can see through this demonstration how I'm just being on this bike and explaining that you're flowing with it now, and you're finding the center of balance for the forces of braking, accelerating, the forces on the track. But the amateur, and then what happens is he freezes, okay? An amateur freezes, and you might be making this mistake yourself. they get nervous. I believe me. Now, listen, I'm not ripping on anybody. I've been there myself. I completely understand. You get nervous and you freeze, okay? And you might be wrong, completely wrong back here, and you freeze right here. This is where you ride the whole time. Now you're coming into a corner, okay? And you're like, oh, you don't even know what to do. You're just stuck right here. Well, all that stuff was happening. You start, you know you got to brake. You're froze right here. You don't move at all. You start to brake, you just stay right here. Well, then you maybe that was all right for braking. Maybe that was the right spot. So for 1 second, you feel somewhat good. You're like, oh my God. Then you start to leave off the brakes because you get to the corner. Well, you never move anywhere back to the center of balance. You never adjust on the bike to even it out. So you stay right here. Now it starts to feel all sketchy again. You go into the corner. You don't lean the bike over at all. Maybe you sit down. Maybe you get that right. You sit down, but you don't even sit down. You're not high on the tank. You're way back here. And you're sitting, you're froze here, and it's just a constant fighting of the bike. See what I mean? And it's a big mistake a lot of amateurs make by freezing like that. One of the best things you can do, guys, is even if you're doing it wrong, I tell this to a lot of guys, even if you're doing it wrong, don't just flow, breathe, relax, okay? And just flow on the bike. Just make movements on the bike. What will happen is once you're seeing what you're seeing here, you'll start to make the connections. Oh, okay. I'm braking now pretty hard. I need to make that road back movement. All right, I'm accelerating now. I need to go into the force of acceleration. All right, I'm going into the corner. I need to lean the bike over. What I mean is you might do it, maybe overdo it or might not have it exactly right. But if you're starting to do it, you start to play around with it. You start to make movements, playing around with it, back, forward, over. You'll start to make the connections. You'll start to see, okay, I see. I was coming down that downhill. I should have been back a little bit. Okay, I got to the bottom into a corner. I was braking pretty hard. I needed to go back even a little bit farther. Okay, I released the brakes. Now I need to go back more to the center of balance. Okay, now I was throttling. I got into the corner. Okay, I needed to weight that outside peg and lean that bike over a little bit more. Keep them elbows out a little bit higher. And then I accelerate. I need to lean forward into that force of acceleration. And then the flow will start to happen. You'll start to make the connections. So, all right, guys. I'm going through a lot here, and I'm going through it quick. I know there's a lot to pick up, and there's a lot to take. And hopefully it's making sense to you. Hopefully you're seeing how this works. But this is the most important things. This is that movement's right there. The starting point, center of balance. You start there just because the bike has no forces, and that's where you can move the most quickly to make the adjustments to find the center of balance and that standing center of balance. And then you go to seat it into the corners. That lowers the center of gravity and it allows you to rail through a corner basically. And that's the starting point. It's the most important thing. I mean, so basically, if you get that wrong right from the rip, right from the start, well, you're building bad habits. Number one, you're going to fight the bike all the time, which is never going to build confidence. And confidence is a weird thing because what happens with confidence is once in your mind is you become frustrated. Once you're like, it starts like, I don't know what's going on here. I can't get it. I feel sketchy. I feel out of control. It's like a loop in your mind. And what happens is it don't give you belief, like a belief that you can do it. It don't give you the strength or the belief that you can do it. And each time you do it and you do it wrong, it gets worse and worse for you believing that you can do it. And then that's where people give up. That's where people say, I can't get this, man. It's just too hard. You know what I mean? And all it was you just weren't doing them things correctly. And to give you a little bit of hope, a little glimmer, like, wow, that felt good. Wow, I felt that. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I see how that works coming into that corner. I see how that works, when I'm under braking. I see how that works when I'm under acceleration. Just a little bit. It doesn't take much. As long as you get a little bit, it'll start that loop in your head of positive. And when you get the positive thing going, that's where you'll see guys stick to it and then really get good and really start to work with it, practice it, and get better and better and better at it. And then next thing you know, I mean, it sounds like a lot, but the next thing you know, before you know it, you're flowing pretty good and you're moving right up to the right ranks. You're starting to win your races. But just another thing is to remember is take your time with this. I mean, take your time in the sense of get out there and practice one thing at a time, maybe, and slow it down. Okay. Another mistake guys make, this is a huge, huge mistake. They already start with all these bad riding habits. They're all wrong. And when they go out there to practice, they in their mind, they might say to themselves, okay, I'm going to slow down today. I watched that video by Scoob. I'm going to slow down today and practice that. Well, as soon as they get out there with their buddies, or maybe not even with their friends, they're on a practice track and there's guys ripping around. It's like, you just throw it all away. You're like, man, you feel faster the other way. But in the long run, you're really not, you're only going to advance and you're building bad habits. So when them guys blow by on the track, you're trying to slow down, learn this, you're like, whatever. And you just hammer and go right back to them old bad habits. It's very hard to do. Believe me, I completely understand. But one of the best things you can do is slow it down and really feel this. It's got to become a reflex reaction. So you start to make them little connections in your mind, and you feel how it goes. Motocross is so much about feeling. It's unbelievable. It's feeling the back of your bike and what it's doing going in the corner. It's feeling how it's reacting. It's feeling them movements and how they helped you get better momentum and flow. Okay. And once you get that good feeling, that good positive loop begins, and that's where you start to make progression. Okay. But like I said, just relax, breathe, and slow it down. Slow it down. If you can, find somewhere where no one's riding at and set up 2 cones where you can practice this stuff, where you can practice the standing center of balance, the starting point, the elbows out, waist, shorter square, nice and no weight in the upper body, weight down through the lower legs and the foot pegs, head up, looking to where you want to go. You want to keep your head up nice and high, looking to where you want to go, but you want to center it over the handlebar mounts. Okay. Just start taking each one of them things and practicing them. And, maybe take like 1 or 2 things and then practice them until you start to feel them a little bit. Then move on to the next thing, move on to your seated, move forward into the force acceleration, go back against the force of braking. And, it'll start to come together for you guys. I'm going to step over here for a minute. Hopefully that's okay. I got Ty, he said he had to leave early. You guys still there? Is that helping tremendously? Ty sent me. Do you guys have any questions? If you got any questions, please shoot them to me right now. Any questions you have at all? I'm going to open up for questions right now. Any tips on racing in the sand? Let me see, Jason. Any tips on racing in the sand? Do you treat sand corners differently? Okay. The basic things, what I'm showing you, you do the same, especially in the sand, Jason. You want to be loose. You want to flow. You don't want to get stiff in the sand. Okay. Sand is where you definitely, and you want to make these movements because that sand, it all depends. I mean, if it's a real sandy, I mean, I rode tracks like in Florida that were, it was kind of a mix between clay and sand, and it was awesome because it would actually create your own lines. Okay. But you want to, in the sand, you want to, so that movement, shake it real quick. You were asked about corners, but I'll also tell you, like, if you're going down through a straightaway, you're going to have to make this movement a little bit more back here. Because what happens in the sand is you want to keep your front a little bit lighter, okay? Because if it digs in too much into that sand, depending on how deep the sand is and how bad it is, if you're like on a total sand track, that's where you can get that front to dig in too hard and wash out. It's going to crash it. So you're going to see this movement more like when you're powering down through straightaways. You're going to have to watch that going up over the front of the bike when you initially, even from the seated powering out. You're going to have to keep that, maybe just come more straight up and down, maybe lean into it a little bit. Into the corners, well, that's what we're touching on. But as you go in, you're going to be coming into the corners. You're definitely going to want to be in your standing, and you're going to, you're going to have to stay loose on the bike. You're going to have to stay really loose on the bike. You're going to have and breathe. Don't freeze up in the sand because it's going to throw you everywhere, right? So you're going to be doing a lot of lateral movements, a lot of adjusting, and staying loose. Once you get into that corner, once you start to enter into that corner, you're going to definitely go into your seated. You're just going to have to, be careful of that front wheel digging in too much and maybe crashing you out. You want to keep that front wheel a little bit more light. So maybe when you sit, you don't go as much forward as you're powering out of that corner. Sand has a tendency, if it's real thick sand and it's real deep sand, I should say, has a tendency to kind of throw you all over the place, grab a hold of you, you know what I mean? So as you're powering out, you initially always want to lean forward in that forced acceleration, but maybe it's not as severe. Maybe you're not way up over there, okay? Maybe you're a little bit more lean forward into it, apply the throttle, and just letting that front a little bit lighter to kind of get through that sand, okay? Does that help? Michael, go fast. There you go. That works. Hey, Scoob. Someone left. Okay. Any tip? Michael said, go fast. Whoops. Yeah, that's definitely Michael. No doubt about that, man. That's what we all want to do. Go fast, And that is the thing. I mean, a lot of times what happens is, guys, is a lot of times when you're on your throttle, actually you have more control when you're going faster. When you're choppy on the throttle, what's happening is you're creating an imbalance on this bike. Because what happens is when you're on and off the throttle, when you're throttling hard, okay, and then you release the throttle, when you're throttling, you're steering more with the rear end of the bike, okay? So you're under this throttle hard, you're powering on this throttle, the bike's not always going to be a little bit light if you're not way over the front of the bike. If you're in the standing center of balance, if you come back like Ryan Villapota does, you're going to keep that front light, okay? And this is an advanced technique. I'm going over the foundation here, but I'll just throw it at you. As you get better with this, you start to become more in shape and your body can handle more, and you can ride this bike. What you start to do is you start to learn how the suspension works, okay? And what it is, the suspension can cause an imbalance also too, because you're hitting breaker bumps, you're hitting stuff like that. So like when you see Ryan Villapota coming back here as he's powering hard, what he's doing is keeping his front light a little bit, so it's skimming over some of the breaker bumps, some of the, some of whatever's down through the track. We've got all kinds of stuff that builds up, even if it's not like a jump or anything like that, it's just part of the track that's rough. Your front's skimming over it, okay? You're keeping the front kind of light skimming over it. And what that does is only then your most of the impacts come into the back shock of your bike. So that allows you to control it a little bit better, okay? Because you're not boom hitting the front, boom, then hitting the back over all that stuff and really throwing you out of control. You're keeping the front a little bit light. It's not a thing where you're riding like a massive wheelie or nothing. It's just a little bit where you come back a little bit more on the bike as you're powering just to keep the front a little bit lighter, okay? So yeah, I mean, there's times where this bike, as you get better with it and you start riding with it, you'll notice how the suspension can screw you up sometimes, screw you up a good bit actually, when you're going over all this rough stuff. The other thing I was going to touch on there was this throttle. When you're choppy on this throttle, I mean, you guys are all riders. You probably study all kinds of stuff. You've probably heard this a million times. When you're on the throttle, it's all that everyone preaches smooth throttle, consistent throttle. And why that is because that same deal. When you're choppy on this throttle, the force is going to the front, back. You're on, it's going to the back. You're off, it's going to the front. You're on, it's going to the back. You're off, it's going to the front. So when you're choppy on that thing, you're creating that imbalance. It's going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it's almost like you'd have to move like that. I mean, not really, but you know what I mean? And that throws you off. It screws you up, and it gets you in. You can't find the correct balance. It's like, whoa, where's that? You don't even realize it, but that's what's going on, okay? So when you're off the throttle, you're steering more with the front of the bike because that force is going to the front. So you're steering now with more of the front. And you'll see riders like James Stewart. James Stewart is a guy that rides more like that. Even though he's powering, he puts more weight to the front of the bike, okay? So he steers more with the front. And like Ryan Villapota, like we just went through, he steers more with the rear of the bike because he's more back here putting the weight on the front where the front's light and it's not really doing nothing digging in, okay? Where Stewart's more up over the front of the bike and you see him steering more at the front. it's hopefully that makes sense to you guys. I mean, it's a little bit more of an advanced thing, but that's why you want to be smooth in this throttle though, because you don't want that imbalance on the bike going to the front, going to the back, going to the front, going to the back, boom, boom, back and forth. That's why it's always good to always keep a little light throttle on for control. And that's basically, Michael said go fast. And that's what I was trying to get. You know, going fast does help you, keeping a smooth, steady throttle, okay? Matt asks, how do you get used to a new track? How do you get comfortable on the jumps? Okay. Thanks for the sand tips. Are there any exercises to gain confidence in the front tire? Hopefully, Jason, hopefully that just helped you, what I just explained right there. You know, hopefully that helps. Gives you an idea of what's going on there as you're throttling. Let me know if that helped and if that's what you mean. David, David, he must be his son. Matt asks, how do you get used to a new track? How you get comfortable on the jumps? Well, first of all, a new track. When you get to a new track, David, it's brand new to you. It's just like learning this thing the first time you jumped on the bike. It's like you don't even know. You have no idea. So one of the number one things you want to do at a new track is you want to go out before you ever ride that track. If you have the chance, if you know, maybe if you get there and the practice is already gone or they give a break, you want to go out and walk that track. Okay. And one of the biggest things you can do is as much as you can, make a visual note in your head of how that track goes. Okay. That'll help you tremendously. Visualizing things in motocross is a big thing. Some people look at this and go, hokey pokey stuff. But when I started to visualize, one of the biggest things I realized in my career, and the biggest thing that I started to do was visualize, and I started to visualize the whole shot. And I get to the track, and I would, if I knew the track or if I didn't know the track, I would go out and stare at the whole shot. I definitely would walk the track, okay? If I didn't know the track, and try to remember as much as I could. You know, it's hard to do in the whole thing, especially a big track if you've never been there before. But I would try in my mind to visualize. I'd get back in my pit and try to visualize walking that track and every piece of it. And if I got to a point where I couldn't remember, I'd go right back out where it ended in my head when I was trying to picture it and go, okay, there's that part. I mean, all the time it didn't work, especially in the new track because there's so much, okay? But like I said, with the start, though, I would always picture the start also. And I never did this until I read this one time, and it helped me tremendously. Matter of fact, I started getting hole shots all the time. And what I do is I would just picture myself going right up to the gate, going to the gate I picked. I'd picture the girl up there with the card holding the 30 sign. I'd picture him going sideways. I'd hear the sounds of the bikes. I'd see the gate just flicker and go. And I'd picture myself, boom, now on a perfect hole shot and getting out in front of all them people. I'd picture myself going into the first turn. Okay. And then I might run the rest of the track if I knew it. Or if it's a new track, I might, you know, try to run the rest of the track. But I'd always go back and do that hole shot right before I went out for the hole shot. And I'm telling you, it's amazing what that does for you. I don't know what it is. I can't explain it. Some people think it's hokey pokey stuff. I'm just here to tell you that when I started doing that, it was unbelievable the difference it made. Okay. So that's Matt, that's one way to get used to a new track. Okay. And then, i.e. to get comfortable on jumps, which I totally understand that too, because what's happening with the jumps is you don't know them. Okay. You're getting out there and you don't know them. I mean, that's why what I just explained, you want to walk and try to visualize every one of them jumps. I'm telling you, it sounds hard to do, but it really, really isn't. If you really take the time and go out and picture it in your mind, go back, sit down at your pit for a minute and really run it over in your mind. Okay. It's still not going to be perfect if you've never been to that track. Believe me. I've been to many tracks where I was like, oh, man, I can't remember. Like, especially on a jump that had a face, you couldn't see the other side, right? And I was like, man, you didn't want to screw up because you were like, is that thing a double or was it a tabletop? You know, some tabletops will have a long takeoff and you can't see what's on the other side. But it might have been a double, it might have been a short double, it might have been a long tabletop, and I would get it confused in my mind. And you didn't want to, you know, think it was that long tabletop, and here it was this short double. Or it was a triple that wasn't that long or something, and you end up coming up way short or way overshooting it, you know? So it is a tricky thing, and it's a hard thing to do. The best advice I can give you on that is to go out and walk that track and visualize it. And then when you get out to practice too, when you get your practice session, you've got to try as quickly as possible to ride around and remember what them jumps were. And sometimes I would even use markers, like whatever it may be in my peripheral vision coming up there. Maybe at that point there was a moose banner going right up to that jump. Okay. And it's hard to do. I had to click in my head. Okay. That's that long tabletop. Boom, come off that one, come around. And maybe there was a hay bale pro circuit, hay bale covers. Oh, that's that short double. Okay. But it is hard. That's a hard thing to do, especially you just show up at your first track that you've never been there before. And, but that, hopefully them tips help. That's one of the biggest things that I used to do that would help me. Okay. And speaking of jumps, and did that help David, or did that help Matt? Did that help him? I mean, David, definitely take your kid out. I'm pretty sure, David, you were the one that said you and your son were on. Walk that track every time with them, even if it's a track you've been to 100 times. I used to race Mount Morris all the time. I love Mount Morris, but I always went and walked that track, just because even if it was exactly the same, they didn't change nothing. Even if they were out grooming, it was all groomed, because it's always good just to have that in your mind. Even if I could go back and picture that track, no problem, which I can do it right now. I know that track like the back of my hand. I still went out and walked it. Just, you never know what you see, what's out there. What maybe they worked on it during the week in the face of the big sky jump. If you guys ever been to Mount Morris, there's times where I went there, and guys were like, my buddies were like, I ain't walking the track, man. It's good to do something else. I was like, I'm walking the track. What are you watching the track? Well, you know this track. I'd get out there and be like, wow, they changed the face to that jump. That jump's not the same anymore. It's not. It's got like maybe steeper now, or they just whatever. They changed it, and I'd get back and say, dude, they changed that double. You know what I mean? They changed that uphill sky jump. Really? Yeah. What I mean? So just always walk the track, and always. I think it's awesome just walking with your son. I think it's one of the best things you can do. That's a good experience, just getting out there with your boy and walking the track and discussing, looking at the different options, the different lines you may be able to take. Different corners, like saying, a lot of times you can go into corners of the track and they're freshly groomed, and you can make your own line. And maybe you were there the week before and you didn't get to do that, and you had to take a line that somebody else made, and maybe you're like, I'm going to start one right here. You know what I mean? Sometimes that can hurt you also too, because it's a fast line, and other people start taking it and it wears it down, but you get the point. David said, yes, thanks. That did help. Any more questions? I kind of went way off here. I'm sorry, guys. Like, I had a plan, but the Google Drive presentation that I made, I was just going to follow the plan and get right along. I kind of spun way off from that, so I apologize for that. And I hope this is really helping you guys. Hope this is, you know what I mean. I mean, we went over that center of balance, and that's the most important thing. I mean. Please, when you leave this webinar, wherever you go and wherever you are right now, and what, maybe you have warm weather, maybe you're coming from wherever, get out there and practice that, and put your bike on the bike stand and get your son or get yourself and do that. Run through that stuff. I'm telling you, this thing has to become a reflex reaction. That's the only way you're going to get good. That's the only way you're going to up the game. That's the only way you're going to become a better rider, is for it to become part of your engraved in your DNA. The difference between Stewart, Dungy, Tomac, Reed, and even an A rider from your local district, wherever you guys are from, you probably watch A riders and think, how in the heck are they doing that? But if James Stewart showed up, if Ryan Dungy showed up, if Eli Tomac showed up, if Ricky Carmichael showed up, they would smoke that A rider. And you're looking at that A rider going, he is so fast. Well, Ricky and them are even faster. They would smoke them guys, okay? And the reason that is because this is second nature to them. They flow on a bike. And listen, when you get this, when this becomes, it's an art form. Listen, when you feel true flow on a bike, it's an art form. It's one of the greatest feelings in the world. It's unbelievable, especially when you have a perfect day. And let me know if any of you guys are on here, if you ever had, maybe some of you guys are more advanced riders and you had them days where everything just clicked. Everything just came together. everything flowed. You had confidence blowing out the wazoo. And it's the greatest feeling in the world, okay? But you can have that every time. I'm almost said almost every time. You can have that every time if you just take the time and learn the center of balance and the movements. That's it, because that's where it starts. That's it, guys. Because when you're not in that center of balance for what I just went over there, you're fighting the bike. That's what you're doing. And you're never going to feel that confidence, that flow. You're never going to ride like a pro, okay? And what happens is you can go to a track once you get this down. And what we'll do is here, I know this is getting a little long and I don't want to keep you guys on here. I'll do another one of these if you guys are interested in it. And what I was going to do is go over the 5 controls next, because that's the next part in the foundation. It's the movement from the center of balance and then the 5 controls, okay? But we're running along on time here, and I'll do another webinar. Would you guys want another webinar on the 5 controls? Say yes if you want that, and I'll shoot another one here for another week or so, and we'll just go over all the 5 controls, okay? And that ties in with that body position, center of balance, and goes where I was just going on a rampage there about the flow, about the timing, about the control. And you need to get that down to get that good feeling and to flow like that, or you're always going to fight the bike. It's just as simple as that. You're always going to fight the bike. You're never going to ride to your full potential. And it all starts with that body position, center of balance, and the movements from the center of balance for forces of the track, like jumps, whoops, ruts, and the forces of the controls, the 5 controls. When you apply them forces, it creates, you got to find the center of balance now by adjusting from them forces of the track and from the clutching and the braking and accelerating by making them movements I showed you. That's the only movements there is. There's no other movements. Your biggest one's going to be that one where you row to the back of the bike. That's your biggest movement. You're going to use that the most. What his name said earlier, jumps, okay? You're going to use that movement over jump every time, okay? You want me to explain a jump to you real quick and how and how that movement works over jump and how the throttle works? I can explain that if you guys want me to real quick. I can make I'm sorry, I never do nothing quick. As you guys, if you watch my videos, I get yelled at all the time for just going too long, but that's just my style. So sorry, guys. That's what I do. I go along. I just really like to explain stuff. I really want you guys to understand it. I'm just not good at condensing it real quick. Yeah. The feeling is the best after a beer. Thanks to Ronnie Mack. Michael, I like this Michael guy, man. He's from El Salvador, I think, Michael. Is that true? I know you're from somewhere else. He is awesome. He sends me the best emails. Michael cracks me up, man. The feeling is best after a beer. I know everyone likes a good beer. Hey, there ain't nothing better than getting a good day in and having a good beer for us older fellas. You know what I mean? But yeah, let me show you something on the jump real quick. All right, look. I said that movement, right? That movement. This is the movement you're going to make, that rowing movement to the back of the bike. I'll just show it to you real quick. You're going to use this movement over every jump, okay? No matter what, you're going to use this movement over every jump. Boom, the row to the back, back to the center. Okay, when you go off the face of a jump, no matter what, off of every jump, as a beginner, you want to be start center of balance. That first thing we went over. I won't run through it again. You guys know it. Head over the handlebar mounts, boom, knees tight, the whole 9 yards. You want to start every jump, no matter what the jump is, from there, okay? But you're always going to make this movement no matter what. And it might be a bunch, and it might just be a little bit, boom. You're always going to make that movement. Why is that? Why are you going to make that movement? Here's why you're going to make that movement. Because no matter what, over any jump, when you start up the face of the jump, what happens is your suspension compresses, okay? Now, how much it compresses all depends on the size of the face of the jump. You might have a real short one with a steep takeoff. You might have a longer takeoff, okay? The longer takeoff is going to actually not compress your suspension as much. So, but anyhow, what's going to happen is off of every face of every jump, you're going to come into the face of the jump, the suspension, the rear shock is going to compress, boom, okay? When it compresses, as you leave the jump, boom, it's going to release, okay? And when it releases, what do you think happens? Where do you think the force goes? The force goes up through you to the front of the bike. Boom, it releases, it goes forward, okay? Now that's all dependent. See, this is why when you practice jumps, you should, find a small little one, see how your suspension works, and practice on different fees. And this is all, here we go, slow it down, jumps especially, and feel, this is the crucial part right here. Feel what your bike's doing off the face of that jump. Feel, here we go back to feel. Motocross is so much about feeling. So it's either gonna, okay, say you have a real steep face, what's gonna happen? It all dependent on how fast you're coming in. Okay, so if you're hauling the mail, you're coming in, you got a steep face, what's gonna happen? It's gonna hit and it's really gonna compress, right? So as soon as it leaves the face, it's compressed, boom, it's gonna release. All that pressure, all that suspension compressing is gonna release. What do you think you need to do? You need to make this movement right here. Whoa, what if you make this movement? You come into that face, it's real steep, boom, it compresses. As you leave the jump, you're on the throttle. Remember, always leave the face of the jump on the throttle. I'll explain something else here in a minute about the throttle. But here, okay, so it compresses. As it releases, do you want to make this movement? No. Do you want to be seated? No. Now, there is a seat bounce. Take this down first. Always jump from the standing center of balance, okay? So as it compresses, it's going to release. You always have to make this movement. Boom. You got to row back into that release so it don't push you over like this, okay? No matter what, I don't care what jump you go off of, you're always going to have to row back into that release, okay? And that's all a timing thing, though. You got to learn that jump, what jump you're on, and how it's compressing and how it's releasing, and get the feel for it. Now, if it's a longer takeoff, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to be railing off the face of it, and it's not going to compress as much. It's always going to compress some, though, okay? And that's why you want to start in the center of balance off the face of a jump. Because what would happen if you started back here off the jump? Okay, you're on that long one now. You're on that long straightaway, right? That long takeoff. I'm sorry, the long takeoff of a jump. What if you started back here? You're in the wrong body position. You're not in that standing center of balance, and you're back here. Well, you're already going to be putting weight on the suspension, right? So now you're going off that long one, and it's going to release and kick you more. Okay, you're gonna have to really go back then when you didn't really need to do that. That's why you always start the face of a jump here. The other reason you always start in the center of balance starting point off the face of a jump is you can make them movements really quick, and you can make adjustments for how your suspension reacts, the feeling of it. So you leave that long one and it don't compress that much, boom, and it just shoots you off. You can just slide back a little bit into that. Because what's going to happen every time is when you take off in the air, you have to make that to find the center of balance so your bike don't go like this, okay? Or you'll have sometimes where you get your bike to go like this. Now, let's touch on that a minute off a jump. That's your throttle, okay? You always want to leave the face of a jump on the throttle, okay? What happens is if every time, no matter what, if you go off the face of a jump and you leave off the throttle, the front will drop every time. And you're really going to have to make this movement. So if you come off the face of a jump, you're like, and at the very end, right as you're about to take off, you go, and you shut the throttle off. I promise you, every time your front's going to drop. Because what happens is that rotation of the wheel slows down, and all that force comes forward, and you're going to drop that front every time. Guess what? You better make this movement if you do that really far to the back, okay? Because if you stay right here or you go too far forward, you are going over the bars, okay? Now, the other thing is you'll get, do you ever have where you come up nose high like this off a jump? That sucks too. What that is all that is maybe you can even answer it for yourself now as you're starting to learn this. What do you think that would be? What that is you're maybe a little too much throttle and you're in the wrong body position. You already have too much weight to the back. You're already back here. You're not right there in that starting point. That's why it's so important on the face of the jump to be in that standing center of balance starting point, the point you go to. We learn right from the beginning when you jump on the bike. So when that suspension does what it does, it compresses and releases, you can adjust, okay? But if you're on the throttle hard and you're coming off the face of a jump, okay, but you're already too far back here, there's your weight back here, okay? The suspension, your throttle's a little bit too much throttle, and it comes off and it shoots you up. But you don't see that as much. You see more what? This, right? Why is that? Because that suspension is compressing and it's releasing. Every time that suspension, that shock, I'm saying suspension, you know, the shock, every time it releases, it's always going to kick you a little bit like this, okay? But the reason why you'll get this is you're too hard on the throttle off the face of the jump. That's where you'll see guys sometimes they'll make a mistake off the face. You know what I mean? And then their weight's back here, and it'll go. It don't matter. It can't compensate for it going like this. It just takes off and goes that way. So I hope that helps with jump, guys. That's the key. I mean, for a jump, get practice on the face of jumps and feel what your suspension doing. You're always going to have to row back. Never chop the throttle. Always start from the standing center of balance, standing starting point center of balance when you go off the face of a jump. And always keep a smooth, steady throttle. Don't chop it. Especially don't leave it off the face, okay? So, all right, guys. Can we do bike and suspension setup webinar sometime? Jason asks, can we do a bike and suspension setup webinar sometime? Yeah, dude, without a doubt, we can do that. Big time. I will tell you this. I'll just tell you this quick. With your suspension, one of the biggest things you can do, Jason, is take get it set up for your weight. So take it to someone like RG3 Factory Connection. Tell them your weight, your size, boom, 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 and they'll revalve it and spring it for your weight and height. And the next thing you want to do is always set your race sag. And I'll leave. I don't know if I can get a link in here. I'll put a link on, because I'm not sure how to do it in here, but I'll put a link on my website. If you go to dirtsoldiersmotocross.com, I'll leave a link for how to set your race sag if you don't know how to do that. Listen, I hated suspension. Hated it, okay? When I was an amateur, when I was riding, I hated it. And what I did was I never okay, here's what I want to let you guys know, how important the center of balance is. And this is proof of it right here. Me, myself, I hated suspension when I started riding. I never touched it. I went and set the race sag, and I went and got it set up for my weight. And I swear to you, and I mean this, you might not even believe this, I never touched it until I became a pro. And it's just funny you say this, because there was a guy just asked me a question like a week ago. He said, how important is suspension for an amateur rider? And this is the answer I gave him. This is what I'm telling you guys right now. You get the center of balance down and you start to flow on this bike, you learn how to move and flow on this bike with the forces of braking, acceleration, forces in the track, and you can ride this bike. And it's not that important to have your suspension. And don't get me wrong on this. I mean, you definitely want to get this set up for your weight. I always did that, and you want to set the race sag. But I one time took a 1972 Enduro and made a bet with my buddies that I could beat them on this whopped out. I'm telling you, this thing was whopped out, man. Suspension, it was spongy as heck in the back. And these dudes were like, we were arguing, my buddies, they were saying that suspension is one of the most important things. And listen, I'm not saying that it isn't. It is. It's important. But what's more important is this body position. Once you get this down, you can ride a whopped out bike. I did it myself and beat these guys. Some of them I didn't beat, but I beat a bunch of them and ran with the rest of them on a 1972 Yamaha Enduro bike. And I proved to them, and listen, I'm telling you, when I did this with these guys, guess what they all did? They all went and started to practice their body position, center of balance movements, because that's the most important. You can take a bike and adjust on it for the suspension, the feel, like I've been talking the whole time. And even the walked out suspension might make you have to move more or adjust more here and do more here. But you can ride that bike really fast. It's crazy. So, suspension is very, very important, but it's more important as you become a pro, okay? As an amateur, it's more important to learn the center of balance and the movements and the 5 controls, which we haven't even touched on yet. We'll do a webinar on that. That's what's more important, okay? But to get your race sag set up and get it set up for your weight and everything. But as you become a pro, what happens is you need every fine little thing. So as I became a pro, then I had to really learn the suspension. And even at that, I would go, and you have at your local track, you have a guy that sets up and he'll adjust your clicker. So I would even go up to him and be like, okay, man, it's muddy out today. you know, I have this set up. I have this set up through Pro Action. It might even be an RG3. You pay them $20. They don't care. They'll look at they'll look at the track conditions. They'll hit your clickers to set it up for that day, and that's what I do. So, you know, the point being, learn the center of balance. Let it become engraved in your DNA. Let it become part of your reflex reaction by slowing down and going through this stuff, practicing it on the bike stand. And guess what? You're gonna ride. You're gonna boom, 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 really quick and really fast, and you're gonna ride really good. So, how to know when you are going to land? How to know where you're going to land? Michael asks, how to know where you're going to land? Well, Michael, thank you. We have to go. Okay, thanks, David. Michael, how to know where you're going to land? I'm thinking that goes back kind of like to learning the track. That goes back to knowing, you know, how the distance on that thing, and taking it slow at first off that jump. Say it's a tabletop. Say it's a double. Say it's a triple. Whatever. If it's a triple, you know, you want to go off that thing slow and get a feel of what it is, and then maybe go for the double. Okay, boom, you know where the double's at, and then start to work up and say, okay, I know what I need. Okay, I need a little more throttle, and then go for the triple. Okay, if it's a tabletop, that's a great jump because you can just take your time on that, take your time on that, take your time on that. And, you know, you can jump a little farther without being too much of a trouble because it's a tabletop. And then what you can do then also is you can take that tabletop and size it up to that triple that's scaring the crap out of you. That double, start clearing that tabletop, you can look and say, guess what? That tabletop is the exact same size as that triple. And I'm clearing the tabletop. So guess what? I need to do that table, the same speed over that triple as that tabletop. Now, the only other thing you got to look at now is, though, the faces. If that face is different from that triple face is different from that tabletop face, it's going to affect that suspension a little different. So you got to just take that, but you'll have your speed. You'll know what speed you need. What's going to happen now is you take off that triple. If it's a different face, you're just going to have to make them movements to adjust. Okay. So, all right, guys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to wrap this up. Here's what I want to let you know about as we get off this. I thank you guys so much for being on this. I have a very special offer, okay, that I want to throw to you guys. I'm doing this for the holidays, for Christmas, for the new year coming up. My Motocross Training Academy, which is what you guys just got right here, into over 400, 500 hours of video running through everything in the foundation, the 5 controls. And I promise they're not this long of videos. I do condense it down in there, but we cover the body position, center of balance. We cover the 5 controls. We cover fitness, because fitness is, we're probably going to do a seminar or a webinar on fitness also, because fitness is big time, because you start all these mistakes and fight the bike anyhow. So we cover a whole section on fitness in there. I'm running this a special right now that you can grab the Motocross Training Academy for $47. $47. You'll never see it at this price again. I did this just for you guys on the webinar, for being part of this program here. I really appreciate being here, taking your time to watch me ramble on. So all you got to do is hit this link right here. I think if this works, I'll throw the offer up. Right there it is. It's $47.95, guys. Believe me, this is a one-time offer. I'm only keeping this up. I'm replaying this webinar one time. And you're going to have the chance to grab it then. Actually, you won't even see the webinar. This is your chance to grab it right now. This is it. Actually, this is over right now. $47.95. Honestly, this thing will transform your riding. It really will. It will take you as a beginner rider and give you the techniques. It runs through drills, all the drills to practice everything you went through just today, plus the 5 controls, plus the fitness, corners, jumps, whoops, breaker bumps. We cover it all, okay? And it will change the way you ride. It will transform your riding. It will make you a better rider. So if you want this, guys, grab it today. $47.95. I was selling it for $197. You know, even at $197, if you used to go get a school right now, if you used to come to my school live here, you know, a 6-hour session is going to be $350. So this is a crazy good price. Jump on it. You will not be happy. You also get bonuses with that, which are I review a video of you. You send me, you got the lifetime. This is a lifetime offer. All you have to do is have someone film you or take a video you already have. You send it to me, and just kind of like this Google webinar works, sorta, I take a program and I go over everything that you're doing, and I send the video back to you. You keep it forever. That's a bonus that you're going to get with the $47.95. And you can ask me any question you want, and that gets answered in that video also. There's also a free ebook in there. A lot of you probably might have my ebook, but it's the ebook strength training. I'm sorry, not strength training for motocross racers. It's pro motocross racing and fitness tips. That also is a bonus that's going to be thrown in for the one-time $47.95. The $47.95 gives you access for life. For life, you're in the Motocross Training Academy for life. Every upgrade, everything I add to it, you're in one time. You get to access these videos on your phone, on your home computer, at the track, right on your phone for life, and every upgrade that ever comes. So $47.95, it's only lasting for a short period of time, guys. It's for the holidays. It's for you being on this webinar, and I really appreciate you guys being here, and I hope this really helped. This is my first one, so I'll keep doing these. I like the suggestions you guys had to keep doing these, and I'm going to do it. And we'll do the suspension one. We'll do a bunch more. This is cool. I like this, and I'm going to keep it rocking and rolling. So I'll see you guys. Talk to you soon. Go to that page right there that I put up that you can see. If you let me, I can give you if that's not showing up, I'll give you the address right now for that special. Give me 1 second. One second, guys. And here it comes right here. All right. It's fun. Talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.